Hello and welcome back to the True Crime Podcast, Murderess Podcast. I am your host, Sidney Smith. Thank you for joining me. On this podcast, you and I will take a look into the real-life murders committed by women. Now, if you are new and this is the first time you're hearing my voice and hearing this podcast has been around for a little while. I took a bit of a break. For those of you who have been following the podcast for the number of years that I've been doing it, I've run through few different co-hosts trying to make this thing go. As I had explained to you guys before, I wasn't quite sure how much I just enjoyed doing it alone and how much you guys would even enjoy just listening to my voice go. But I did decide to bring it back. Excuse me, just adjusting my mic. I did decide to bring it back because I did enjoy doing it, and I do enjoy doing it. I do have some help on the research side of things now. So I'm hoping that would help alleviate some pressure. For those of you who are not aware, again, of me and what I do, I'm a professional comedian. I also write and direct my own films. I just shot my special towards the end of last year. So there's a lot of different things that I have going. I have two other podcasts that I'm doing right now. One of them is brand new, called Running in Slow Motion. I'm doing that with my wife, Tamara. So there are a lot of moving parts, in my world. The podcasts now are part of a podcast network that I created called, what the hell did I call that damn podcast network? You Hear Good Things. So a lot of different things are happening, but Murderess was definitely something that I had a love affair with, really enjoyed, and decided to go ahead and make sure we're going to keep this thing going. So this is the first one of 2024. Speaking of which, I normally hate this, but since I've been gone for so long, Happy New Year to you guys. So hopefully everyone out there had a great holiday season and everything's been going great. I've just been out here living my best life as I can. Before we get too much further, I also want to remind you guys, if you're listening to Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars. That would be great. Leave us a nice rating. If you're listening on anything else other than Apple Podcasts, just go ahead and leave us a nice rating. I would really appreciate it. If you're catching us now on Spotify, I believe you can still leave ratings on Spotify, I believe. Be completely honest with you, I do not use Spotify a whole lot. So I'm kind of flying blind there. I'll have to do a little bit better research or have the research squad do some of that for me. But again, just happy to be back. And we got a great story lined up for you. Before I do get into the story, I'm going to do what I normally do and chat just a little bit. So if you're not liking the sound of my voice just talking to you, this would be a great time for you to kind of click the old fast forward button, and it won't hurt my feelings. It will not hurt my feelings at all if you click it a couple of times to get 10, 20, 30 seconds so you can get into the story if that's what you choose. Now, when we bring on sponsors, then it may hurt my feelings. So please do not fast forward at that time. But yeah, just wanted to chat a little bit. I was speaking with a friend of mine actually this evening just before I was getting ready to record this podcast. And he's a good friend of mine, and I hadn't seen him in a few weeks, but I felt moved to go ahead and shoot him a quick text. Hey, man, I love you. And then he shot me a call, and we had a conversation for about 20, 25 minutes, which is very brief for us. If you're out there and you have good friends, you can get on the phone with them, and a 5-10 minute chat that's what you meant to have can turn into an hour, 2 hours. And that can happen to us really quickly. But he has his little girl with him, and I have you guys I had to jump in here with. So we did not talk that long, but I did tell him, I said, man, I'm going to really talk about you because he is someone who, and I hope we all are blessed to have 1 or 2 or 3 friends in our life who are this way. And I hope that we not only are blessed to know that we have these friends, but we're also smart enough to know that we need to reciprocate the positivity and the love that you get from them. He's just one of those guys, man, just always upbeat, even when shit may not be going just right for him. He's still always upbeat. So I just wanted to thank him for that and kind of talk to him about that a little bit tonight. And I told him I was going to talk to you guys about that. If you have friends out there who do that, just reciprocate that love. Make sure they know that they're not alone. We were talking about how you may have 100 people out there on this planet who know that if they call you at 3 a.m., you drop everything to help them. And then you may only have 2 people who would do that for you. And that's because most people on this planet, unfortunately, are takers. And I think that is mostly because We're not I shouldn't say that. Some people just aren't aware of it, and some people just don't care. But if you are aware, we all should just try to do a little bit better. I think just a little bit better. So he's just a good guy, man. And I just wanted to just talk about that real quick about my buddy Chris. Man, it feels weird to be back doing this podcast again after all the time that I've been off. But I'm so happy to be back, and we got such a good storyline. I almost feel like, you know what it was? I think what it was when doing this by myself before, I felt like a 1980s late night disc jockey or something, DJ. Like I'm supposed to just, hey, we got this from whatever group, and we're going to drop this and buy yourself a case of Mountain Dew this week. And then, I just play the records. But I think I'm going to get used to this. My other two podcasts, I don't have to do alone. I got another one I'm going to launch here hopefully soon, and I'll have quite a few people casted for that one. So this would be my only one. So I think I'm really enjoying this actually. So in August of 1996, Bobby and Sharon became acquainted while visiting the various sexually oriented internet chat rooms. Bobby displayed a fetish for inflicting pain, whereas Sharon exhibited a desire to be tortured. Interesting. In an email message to Bobby, Sharon asked him to fulfill her fantasy. She wrote to Bobby that she wanted to be bound and strangled as she approached an orgasm. Bobby responded to her message by describing in depth how he would fulfill her wish. Email correspondence between the two lasted for several months. An investigator of the Lopatka case, Captain Danny Barlow of North Carolina's Caldwell County Sheriff's Department said, quote, "If you put all their messages together, you'd have a very large novel," end quote. Police were able to recover almost 900 pages of emails from Sharon and Bobby's computers. So this story is about Sharon. I'm going to make sure I get this last name correctly. Sharon Lopatka, and 900 pages of email. So when I started reading over some of the pages that were sent to me on this story, I was blown away by how much these folks corresponded in such a short period of time. And obviously we'll get into that. But I guess sitting here thinking about it now, we could just wrap our heads around the amount of text messages that we send back and forth to a friend or a couple of friends, especially if you're in a text thread. How many different pages of that would be out there if someone went out and transcribed all those? So maybe 900 pages is not quite that much, but boy, it seems like a hell of a lot. Sharon Lopatka was the first of 4 daughters born to Orthodox Jewish parents, Mr. and Mrs. Abraham J. Denberg. They were members of the Baal Tefola congregation. Abraham being a cantor at the synagogue. Raised in Baltimore, Maryland, Sharon was allegedly considered by her classmates as normal as you can get, wrote the News and Observer, and was part of sports teams and her school's choir club. Graduating from Pikesville High School in 1979, Lopatka married construction worker Victor Lopatka in Ellicott City, Maryland in 1991, and relocated with him to a ranch-esque track house in Hampstead, Maryland during the early 1990s. The marriage was described by a classmate of Lopatka as a way of breaking away. Her parents did not approve of it. In 1995, Lopatka started doing online advertising businesses from her Ellicott City home in order to make additional money. The first website she hosted, House of Dion, was for selling home decor guides by mail for $7. An advertisement on the website read, "Home decorating secrets seen in the posh homes from the New England states to the Hollywood homes can now be yours. Never published before. Quick, easy ways to decorate your home." She was paid $50 per advertisement rewriting ad copy for business title Classified Concepts. She managed several websites by distributing psychic readings, also garnering a percentage of the money from sales of other services with premium rate telephone numbers advertised on her websites. So far we can kind of see that Sharon is a go-getter, I guess, if you will. She's got several different things going on here in order to make money. So in a way, I like her. So far, she'd be the kind of person I would hang around. I like to consider myself a go-getter. So I kind of dig that part of her personality. In addition to her advertising and psychic reading business, Lopatka marketed pornographic content. Okay, so this is where she and I, we kind of part ways on the marketing of pornographic content. Using the alias Nancy Carlson, which depicted women who were unconscious from being drugged, hypnotized, or chloroformed, engaging in sex acts with each other. Let me go back here. Which depicted women who were unconscious from being drugged, hypnotized, or chloroformed, engaging in sex acts with each other. That is quite a combination of things that are happening there on that website. She sold her undergarments, an advertisement for them reading, "Is there anyone out there interested in buying my worn panties?" So seems like she was kind of ahead of some of these ladies out here, and men for that matter, who are IG and some other social media selling foot pics, panties, all kind of things. I know that there's a woman out there, I heard she sells farts in a jar. So Sharon was on the cusp of getting some of this stuff going. She also used the internet to fulfill her own sexual desires that were often considered irregular to society. Lopatka used other pseudonyms and personas when using pornographic chat rooms of sites like fetishfeet.com. All right, right there, going right to it. I just said people selling foot pics today, and sexbondage.com that had members with fetishes such as necrophilia, bondage, and sadomasochism. Now, for people out there who are listening to me, he didn't know fetishfeet.com was coming up. I'm going to tell you what I do. I take the information that's given to me. I try to put the story together as best I can. And it's a little weird because I want to be as surprised at what I'm getting as you guys when you're listening. So I try not to dig too deep into it, just enough so I know what words are going to be coming up. If there's going to be something tricky, or to make sure I'm not repeating something in the story as I'm putting it together, things of that nature. But I don't really do, unless I decide I want to do one myself, do I really do a deep dive into the writing and so on and so forth. So yes, fetishfeet.com, I had no idea was coming up, nor did I know sexbondage.com was coming up either. All right. More than 50 messages that showed her sexual desire of being tortured to death were discovered by the News and Observer. Lopatka's character of Carson, who was a disciplinary dominatrix pornographic movie actress who weighed 300 pounds, was one of the pseudonyms she used for the chats. This alarmed a sex workers' rights activist named Tanith, who tried to stop Lopatka's behavior. Lopatka replied to Tanith, "I want the real thing. I did not ask for you preaching to me." So far, we're getting a decent picture of who Sharon was when she was alive, when she was here breathing oxygen. And she seemed to be so on the edge here that even the sex workers activists, rights activists, tried to jump in and have some discussions with her. And she didn't want anything to do with that, which I think we all have had people in our lives, maybe not who had this issue going on, but who have had their own troubles, and you tried to help, and they, in their own way, let you know, mind your own damn business. I'm doing what I want to do. So Robert Bobby Frederick Glass worked as a computer analyst for the government of Catawba County, North Carolina, for nearly 16 years. His task included programming tax rolls and keeping track of the amount of vehicle gas consumption in the county. For 14 years, until May 1996, Glass was married to his wife, Sherry, and the couple had 2 daughters and 1 son. Sherry logged onto Glass's email account and found several raw, violent, and disturbing messages that he sent using pseudonyms Toy Man and Slow Hand. As a result, the two separated. Lopatka first met Glass in August of 1996 while in a pornographic chat room. Through email, Lopatka presented her fetish of being tortured to Glass while he sent messages about how he would fulfill her fantasy. Close to 900 pages, like we were talking about, of emails that had went back and forth between the two of them. So it wasn't a lot of time from May 1996 to August. I'm going to say roughly 4 months off the top of my head there. I'm thinking 4 months there that it was between his wife leaving him and he coming across Sharon. So was there any conversation between the two of them? I didn't find any information, didn't see any information that said that. But normally there is a little bit more time. So he must have been really, whatever he was doing, whatever his wife found, obviously disturbed her so much that she grabbed the kids and she ran. So, but he was already, sounds like he was already out there himself in terms of the conversations he was probably having with other people even before he met up with Sharon. So it's not like these two people are intersecting at the exact wrong time. Once we hear the end of this story, but at the exact wrong time. On the morning of October 13, 1996, Lopatka informed her husband she was going to Georgia to meet acquaintances. So again, very short time period here, very short time period. We went from May to August when Glass's wife left him to when he met Sharon. Now we're into October. Just a couple of months after meeting him, she's jumping into her car. So on the morning of October 13th, 1996, Lopatka informed her husband she was going to Georgia to meet acquaintances. She also left him a note that she would not be returning home and requested not to track down Glass. So did he know or not know who Glass was? Okay. The note also read, if my body is never retrieved, don't worry, know that I'm at peace. I could not imagine my wife telling me, well, first of all, I'm going someplace to meet with acquaintances and I won't be returning home. And don't worry about retrieving my body. Know that I'm at peace. That is such a strange thing to think of your loved one, your wife, your husband, leaving something like that for you to read. That morning, Lopatka drove her blue Honda Civic to Baltimore's Pennsylvania train station, quick 45-minute drive away. And then she arrived on an Amtrak train at Charlotte, North Carolina by 8:45. Glass drove with Lopatka in his pickup truck to his rural Lenore, North Carolina mobile home, 80 miles from Charlotte. Lopatka's husband, Victor, found the note his wife left for him and notified the police, who found 6 weeks of email conversations between Lopatka and Glass. In her email correspondence with Glass, Lopatka had explicitly asked Glass to torture her to death. Glass, interviewed later during imprisonment, admitted fulfilling Lopatka's torture fantasy, but also said that the death was an accident. Excuse me here, folks, I'm going to take a sip of coffee. So, I don't know how that will work. Some people out there are into certain things when they're in the bedrooms, the choking. And yeah, I mean, we all have seen the movies 50 Shades of Grey. If there's any fellas out there listening to me, you may have seen it even if you didn't want to see it like I did. And maybe people out there who are fans of the books and who have read the books, such as my wife and some other folks out there and things like that. This is the first story, and I can't imagine the only one. One day when I'm just kind of sitting, I think I'm going to maybe look it up, but to think that something like this would have happened while trying to satisfy each other sexually, that someone was killed, it is something I never thought about before. I don't know if you ever have. Again, I don't know what you may be into. So maybe you were into things like this and you've thought about it. Hey, be careful with that choker there. Just take your time there. So I just don't know. But then again, I'm not really into this. So Glass interviewed later during his imprisonment, admitting to fulfilling Lopatka's torture fantasy, but also said that the death was an accident. He told investigators that for several days, he and Sharon had acted out their violent sexual fantasies in his trailer. Nothing says you're probably going to die more than violent and trailer when you put those in the same sentence together. He confessed that Sharon had willingly allowed him to tie her up with rope and probe her with objects around the house. Objects around the house? What? How are you this? You got 6 weeks of text messages or emails going back and forth. How were you this unprepared that you get the can opener? What are we doing here? Bobby also admitted that Sharon allowed him to tie a rope around her neck and tighten it as she climaxed during intercourse. So here we go. But Bobby claimed to have accidentally strangled Sharon to death while in the throes of violent sexual play, according to his lawyer, Neil Beach. Bobby was later quoted as saying, quote, I don't know how much I pulled the rope. I never wanted to kill her, but she ended up dead. Close quote. Again, Glass said her death was an accident. However, the police disagreed. The search warrant affidavits described the death as intentional and that the emails proved it. Search warrant affidavits released by police stated that Sharon intended to meet Bobby specifically to be tortured and killed. Captain Danny Barlow considered a death under such circumstances to be deliberate, not accidental. So I'm seeing two different things. And for those of you out there, we're covering this murder, even though it seems like our victim is a female and not the murderer or the murderess, is because it's a fine line, but we were so intrigued by the thought of a woman, I don't know, killing herself, committing suicide, depending on how you want to look at this, that we just had to do the story. This is an interesting one. So search warrant affidavits released by police stated that Sharon intended to meet Bobby specifically to be tortured and killed. Captain Danny Barlow has considered a death under such circumstances to be deliberate, not accidental. According to police, the emails written under the pseudonym Slowhand. If there was no other reason I like to talk to this guy, I like to know where he get these pseudonyms from. Slowhand, detailing how he was going to kill Sharon, provided further evidence that the death was premeditated. Okay, I see where we're getting to here. Bobby was charged with first-degree murder and held without bond in Caldwell County Jail. Okay, I see where we're going. Lopatka's electronic mail messages with Glass make it very clear that Lopatka knew the man was talking about sexually torturing and possibly killing her before she traveled the 360 miles from Hampstead to Lenore, said Sergeant Barry Lease, who supervises the computer crime section of the Maryland State Police. So, again, I think the same way that we kind of looked at it, and maybe some of you may be looking at it, is I'm hearing from two different police officers here, a Sergeant Barry Lease and a Captain Danny Barlow. Even they see it differently. She went to see him. She stayed with him. She was not there against her will, said Caldwell County, North Carolina Sheriff Roger Hutchings. North Carolina police staked out Glass's home for several days, but did not see Lopatka. On October 25th, 1996, Judge Beverly T. Bill issued a search warrant on the home. And inside the home, investigators discovered items belonging to Lopatka. In addition, they also found drug and bondage equipment, magazines containing child sexual exploitation material, a .357 Magnum pistol, and several computer disks, as well as trash and toys outside the trailer. So this must be some of the things that the wife found on her computer before she left with their children. And I'm pretty sure the child pornography would have been the cherry on this fucking shit sundae for her. Just getting up and finding on your computer things like this and whatever other aggressive and violent porn, enough to just grab the kids and go. I mean, this isn't just daddy's Playboy. This is some strange shit, even before we get into the child pornography. A police officer then noticed a mound of soil 75 feet away from the home before finding some body parts buried 2.5 feet below. Glass was arrested at work following this discovery, charged with first-degree murder and held without bond in the Caldwell County Jail. Glass also faced additional state and federal charges for the possession of child sexual exploitation material. County investigator D.A. Brown said that Lopatka's body might have never been found had it not been buried in the woods behind Glass's house. Well, as smart as this guy may have been at his job, and he couldn't have been an idiot to do the kind of work he did, maybe he just took it for granted. I'm out in the woods. Who's coming out here? Type of thing, and no one's coming to look for her for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know why. This just seems like a lazy way to dispose of someone if you did not want to get caught. Glass, who had those 3 children, was separated from his wife. So that happened earlier in the year. But when the Associated Press spoke with the neighbors, they said Glass had seemed to change, taking less interest in his home after his wife left him. And I look, I don't know if he planned on any of this. Again, this seems like such a quick timeline from when the wife discovered what she discovered and left I think we go, what was it, 4 months? And then we get to where Sharon is in his trailer, or I'm sorry, it's his trailer or mobile home, whatever it is, out in the woods. So I think I got that timeline wrong. Wife left him. 4 months later, he meets Sharon. And then 2 months later, she's at his place and found to be dead. So a clerk in the criminal division of State District Court in Caldwell County said a search of local records found only that Glass had a speeding ticket in 1988 and was cited for having an expired automobile inspection sticker this year. So this is the guy that you always, like, if you're old enough to remember, people would always make this joke. Is always the guy who you find out who was committing the most serious crimes, whether it was serial killing or anything of obviously here, child pornography, all those different things. And it would always be when the news would interview the neighbors, he was just the nicest guy. So quiet, just waved hello every morning before he drove off to work. I would have never suspected. And here you are with a guy like this, with the interest that he had, and I know I'm using that word very, very, very loosely, but with the interest that he had, and this was still the guy who was almost not even on the radar. The body of Sharon Lopatka was sent to Dr. John Butts, North Carolina's chief medical examiner. The autopsy report stated the cause of death was strangulation. Other tests showed some inconclusive evidence of sexual torture or mutilation. Butts believed that Sharon died 3 days after she arrived in North Carolina. In an interview with the Associated Press on November 1st, 1996, Neil Beach said that the autopsy report supported his client's claim that the death was accidental. It is hard for me to believe that the woman was tortured for 3 days if the medical examiner of North Carolina couldn't find any indication of that. It's much easier to understand or picture an accident occurring during sexual activity than it is to conjure up an image of this man as a cold-blooded, premeditated killer, Beach said. The Lopatka case was reportedly the first where a murder suspect was put in custody by the police department, mainly due to evidence from emails. A majority of the media coverage of Lopatka's killing mainly emphasized the potentially dangerous consequences of internet meetings. Several people requested that a type of censorship be created to better protect humans from killings like that of Lopatka's, while anti-censorship activists counter-argued that people could better express controversial beliefs in an open forum without the need of a real identity. Writers have labeled the situation as one of the earliest examples of what psychologists called Mardi Gras phenomenon, where one uses a variety of personalities to decrease their chances of having a consequence for their actions. Thanks to the popularity of the case, more psychologists increased their desire to have a better understanding of atypical sexual desires caused by sadism, masochism, and asphyxia. In Hampstead, northwest of Baltimore, a neighbor of Lopatka's, Shelley Jenkins, said they kept to themselves. I saw her coming home each day from work, and that was about it. Another neighbor, registered nurse Beth Long, said she occasionally saw Victor Lopatka, and I never saw her at all. She could have been a patient at the hospital, and I would not have known she was my neighbor. And I don't think there's anything quite unusual about that. My wife and I have neighbors. You see them. Some you see, some you don't. Some you see and you wave. Some you see, you may wave at them. They don't wave back. And then there's others you just know. So I don't think this is that weird because, again, we have those neighbors that never want to speak, or you never see anyone coming in and out of that house. Long said it was strange that Sharon was lonely enough or depressed enough to do something like this, to get on the internet and hope someone would make her life better. I don't think that's what she was looking for. So I think as smart as you have to be a registered nurse, I think old Nurse Long has got this one wrong because it doesn't sound like she was looking to make her life better, in my humble opinion. There are many theories to explain why some people participate in deviant sexual behaviors such as sexual strangulation. One theory suggests that deprivation of normal social sexual contact or childhood trauma cause such behaviors. There are also theories, and actually, let me say this. That theory comes from Nathan Gorman and Salkin, 1999. There are also theories based on physiological causes of deviant sexual behavior that focus on the relationship between sexual hormones and the central nervous system. That comes from Psychology Today, 1999. Currently, there is no evidence that suggests that either Sharon or Bobby suffered from any early childhood trauma, abnormal sexual experiences, or hormonal dysfunction. What makes their case exceptional is that Karen ventured into the relationship with one apparent intention to die. Thus, Sharon was a suicidal masochist, and I have never heard that term till this story. However, she was not the first in history to seek out a willing participant who would fulfill a request to be strangled to death for sexual gratification. Nud R. Jorgensen wrote in, I don't know why I said that, Jurgensen, in 1995 about, I am really out of practice on this one. I promise you, the next one will be outstanding. Wrote in 1995 about the 1791 case of composer Franz Kotwer, who enlisted the help of a London prostitute, Susanna Hill, to assist him with his bizarre wish. After paying Hill 2 shillings, Kotwer asked her to cut off his genitalia, a request the prostitute refused. Yet, Hill did agree to fulfill his sexual wish of strangling himself with a rope. Okay, so she must just had a problem with blood. It was the first documented case of death by sexual strangulation. And that's going all the way back to 1791. So I just must be on the rock, I suppose. It was the first documented case of death by sexual strangulation. Hill was eventually arrested for the murder, but later acquitted when authorities learned that she was more or less an innocent bystander, unlike Bobby Glass, who more than 200 years later faced first-degree murder charges for the sexual strangulation death of Sharon. The charge was eventually reduced to voluntary manslaughter. The case against Bobby Glass stretched on for 3 years following several lengthy delays. On January 27, 2000, Bobby pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter as well as 6 counts of second-degree sexual exploitation of a minor. The latter charges resulted from the pornographic material found on Bobby's computer. Bobby was sentenced to 36 to 53 months in prison for the manslaughter of Sharon and 21 to 26 months for the possession of child pornography. That seems a little light. He was sent off to the Avery Mitchell Correctional Institution in North Carolina on February 20th of 2002. 2 weeks before his release, Bobby Glass had a heart attack. He was pronounced dead at 1:30 a.m. at Spruce Pine Community Hospital in North Carolina. So, I don't know, for the folks who listen to the many episodes we have this, not quite sure how you feel about this one. Again, not our classic story, but definitely a different kind of one. I want to give a shout out to the research team for bringing this one to me, because I still believe she falls into the line of being a murderess. Boy, I got to do better next week. She still falls in line of being a murderess. It just so happens that she killed herself this time around. And I'm not sure how I feel about him getting the voluntary manslaughter charge. Obviously, the dude should be in jail a lot longer just for the child pornography. But for this being something that she wanted, for herself driving herself to the train station and getting herself there and leaving the note saying, "Don't look for me," and so on and so forth. I'm not sure how I feel about him even getting the voluntary manslaughter charge and then being convicted of that. Again, child pornography aside, that's an automatic, but it's not as if he snatched her off the street or from the train station and just held her there against her will. So that's where I'm at with it. Would love to hear what you guys think about it. If you are a friend of mine, you're listening, obviously I would love to hear or get a text or a phone call from you. If you are not, I would love for you to just go to my website, Sidney Smith Creative, CRE, the number 8 TIV, and kind of leave me a message there and let me know what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Also, don't forget to go ahead and leave us the review if it's a good review. If it's not a good review, then you never heard this podcast, and don't worry about it. Just keep moving. Just keep moving. Nothing to see here. I want to make sure we give out our credits here. The story you heard today was brought to you by Murderpedia. Also, it was brought to you by, here, what's the other story here? Slain Woman's Email Reveals Violent Intentions by Fern Shen and Paul W. Valentine from the Washington Post. Also, excuse me, another source for us was from crimelibrary.org. Internet Assisted Suicide, the story of Sharon Lopatka, written by Rachel Bell. And one last we have to give here, want to make sure we do. Murder charge dropped in 96 internet sex case, again from the Washington Post. So I want to make sure we give our proper credits to everyone out there. We are going to see you next week. I'm so happy to be back. Even though with all my fumbling, I hope you guys are happy that the show is back. Hopefully that those of you who used to go to sleep listening to us or go to the gym with us or any of those different things, you can kind of get back into that routine with us. Definitely happy to be back with you. Happy to have the research team. Again, what is wrong with me? Happy to have the research team. And as I always said before, and I'm going to try to bring it back right now, be careful of your surroundings. We'll see you next week.